Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to take this a little bit further, and we're going to take it into insights, do some more proactive data exploration, and some other manipulation of it, and then see if we can get some actionable information where we can actually try to reduce some of these outages.
Exactly. So I want to build off of that idea of momentary outages, because again, that's really important to an electric company because they know what a planned outage is. So what I want to do now is not look at the meters or the households that had the outages. I want to look at the assets or the devices that were part of the outage. These are the transformers, the switches, the fuses. So here I am in Insights, and I'm just going to add data. And again, I can search my entire organization for information that's been shared with me. And I'll search for assets. And here's the outage by assets. And I'll just add this directly to my map. So there are 500,000 points that are being drawn right now. And each one of those points represents one of those devices. I don't like this view. Instead, I'm going to make a bubble chart of the device type. There we go. So what this bubble chart is showing us is the 500,000 points that you see on the left, 325,000 of them are transformers, and those are responsible for those momentary outages. Now, I'm going to just remove this map because I don't need that here. And what I'm also interested in is when do these outages happen a lot? So once again, we have our time field here, and I can just drag this on and create a chart. So this is showing us all those outages, and we see that there's definitely a spike in the May timeframe. So what happens in May in Houston? Anybody know? Well, it starts to get hot, but it actually rains a lot. So when we were talking to CenterPoint, they're like, oh, this makes sense. All these outages are happening because of the rain and the flooding and the outages, because when those electrical boxes floods, it creates problems. It's like, oh, this is pretty cool. So now what we wanted to do, though, is to filter out all these outages and really dive into that momentary outage some more. There's a field in this data set called momentary flag. It's a binary field. It's numeric. I'm going to change it on the fly to be a string field. So now it's a string field, I can begin to filter by it. So I'll make the same chart down below the bubble chart. And instead of looking at all these outages, I'm going to filter this to look at only the momentary outages. So the momentary flag. 1 represents an outage, by the way. So now look at this. We can see when we're only looking at momentary outages, transformers play a big part, but switches actually play a bigger part than we ever saw before. Because now if you look at all those 500,000 devices right here, transformers were the biggest ones. But we filter that to only show the devices that are participating in momentary outages, and you can see that. Now we can do the exact same for the time. And we'll filter this one by momentary outages as well. So this was really interesting. There is definitely a spike in that same May timeframe, right? Because of the rain. But this spike out here appeared, and we had no idea what that is. Anybody want to take a guess of what happens in around the August timeframe in Houston? There are tornadoes. There are definitely natural disasters, and the heat does rise. But what we weren't aware of, and that they made us aware of, plant growth. In the Houston area, when it has a really heavy rainy season, the plants grow dramatically fast, very quick. So they believe that this was more so not due to people turning on their air conditioning, but due to the trees growing and then brushing up against the power lines and causing momentary outages. So by using Insights, we were able to just dive into this and start just asking some questions, throwing up some graphs, and trying to find out what's going on. And remember, we did call CenterPoint on this to help us understand why the graphs look this way.
This when we developed this demo, it wasn't scripted. We just worked with CenterPoint and worked with some of our electrical industry experts and just kind of saw what the data showed us. And so what we're seeing these momentary outages, these flickers happening a lot in August. And we think, based on our knowledge, that this might be the vegetation hitting up against the lines. So the great thing about that is we can prevent that, right? Or we can cut down on them because we can go out there and trim the trees, right? So we're working towards a decision. We've got an analysis going, but we're working towards a decision, again, that we can provide information to an executive that says, hey, yeah, we definitely need to cut down on these momentary outages. Let's do some proactive tree trimming and try to get rid of them, right?
Yep.
All right, so we did some more exploratory data analysis this time. Again, we're focusing on those momentary outages. We were able to do a map of 500,000 device points. We graphed them in different ways, looked at it over time. We think we have a link between the vegetation and these momentary outages. And again, that was automatically documented. We could run that again. We could send that model off to somebody else that they could run it with their own data. And again, we could share it with an interactive web page as well.